Hello, my name is Tyler Constable with Avantra, and welcome to our short explainer video on running Avantra with our cloud partner, Microsoft Azure. So if you or your team are responsible for managing an SAP environment running on Microsoft Azure, this video is for you. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about taking the capabilities of Avantra with the capabilities of Microsoft Azure and how combining them together can really make an SAP environment run securely, safely, and stable, and may even help with some of your cloud costs as well. So as we get into it here, I'll briefly go over how this is set up. We'll go through a couple quick examples, and then we'll actually get into the whole solution itself so you can actually see it live firsthand. So first things first here, when we say automation within Avantra and Microsoft Azure, we're really talking about the full stack, right? So when we talk about Avantra's automation capabilities, starting at the top, we're talking about SAP, the database layer, the operating system layer, and then really the focus today is on this public cloud layer. And so again, when we start talking about starting and stopping systems and things of that nature, which we're going to really focus on today, that's going to take that full stack to do that. And this is where Avantra helps manage that entire process. So a couple quick examples. First off, helping to control cloud costs. Now, depending on what your agreement is with Microsoft Azure, this may or may not be applicable, but it could really help reduce your costs if you're able to stop environments and those cloud servers on Friday night, let's just say as an example, and then bring them up on Monday. Now, in this scenario, this is for an organization that, let's say, doesn't need non-production systems, right? So let's say it's a simple environment with dev, quality, and production, and they don't need development and quality up on the weekend. So essentially 2/3 of their environment can be shut down for 2 out of 7 days of the week, right? Saturday and Sunday. This could be a significant amount of cloud cost savings here. But to do this manually, it's kind of troublesome. You can forget about it. There's human error. Avantra can run this whole process for you automatically. So Friday night at a designated time, bring the systems down, and then Monday morning, bring everything back up again. Now that is an example of a scheduled automation. There can also be trigger-based automation. In other words, using Avantra's monitoring capabilities, recognize that something is taking place, and then go out and take automation. Now, in this example, we're going to also integrate into ServiceNow. Right now, that is not necessarily a necessity for this. I just want to throw that in there as something that you may find valuable if you are running ServiceNow. So in this situation, Avantra recognizes that there's not enough dialogue work processes in the SAP application. Now, this is something that the Azure monitoring solution is not going to be able to do. It requires Avantra to recognize, hey, there's not enough resources within the SAP application itself, right? So these are little work processes that happen within SAP. Avantra recognizes that if these fill up, essentially the solution comes to a standstill and appears that it could drag on a little bit or even be completely frozen. So Avantra recognizes that this problem is occurring or about to occur, which is important. And in this case, it goes out and alerts ServiceNow. Now, ServiceNow has some workflow set up that says, all right, to be able to continue this automation, I need to get certain approvals in place. So it goes through its approval process and then goes back into Avantra and says, okay, you're ready to go. Now, if you're not with ServiceNow, that whole step can be missed if you'd like, and it just goes and starts the automation. In this case, it's going to start up an already sleeping and already built server, start that up, and then start up an already built application server. So essentially now we have scaled out successfully that system to be able to handle that additional workload. Now this is really, really valuable because typically when you build out when you architect an SAP environment, you always have to build out for worst case scenario, right? So that one time a year where you might have the most amount of people on the system, the most amount of background processing happening on the system, right? It could be during a busy season or year-end closing or something like that, right? Now, utilizing Avantra, you can keep things pretty scaled in, right? And then just when Avantra recognizes that resources are needed, right, not just from an OS perspective, but from within the SAP application itself that other monitoring solutions aren't going to see, it can then scale out the solution, scale it back in, really helping with cloud costs again, and also with core performance. So let's see how this is all set up. I'm going to go into our Avantra master here. And what we see here are a list of authentications, right? So I went into our configuration dropdown and into our integrations. And in here, I can select what I would like to authenticate into, in this case, Azure. Now with Azure, very, very simple to connect into your environment. These APIs are pre-built from Avantra into Microsoft Azure. And there's a couple just simple things here, subscription ID, your tenant ID, client ID, and client key. From there, Avantra is going to connect in, recognize those SAP environments, and you are ready to go. Now from here, we're going to go into our automations. I have one ready to go here, but with no steps, right? So we're going to add some steps in here. So let's first talk about this scenario where we're going to bring down non-production systems over the weekend. Let's say we've got a BW environment, we have some tax software, and we have an ECC environment. And it's got to happen in a specific order, right? So BW's got to come down in this scenario, then the tax software has to be stopped, and then ECC can come down. So the first thing we're going to do is select what jobs we want to run first. Now, Avantra has a handful of pre-built jobs ready to go, as you can see here. And we can also be a platform to build out your own automation, right? So you can script whatever you'd like to be part of that. Right? So first things first here, we're going to go in, we're going to stop the SAP system, the database, and the servers. And in this case, that is the API into Microsoft Azure to stop those servers themselves. Again, the APIs are all pre-built, ready to go. And in this case, I'm going to come in and stop. Let's just say this is our development system. This could be one system, it could be 1,000 systems. Does not matter. You can bring them all down at once if you would like. Right. So in this case, we're going to stop BW, non-prod. And if this particular step fails, I'm going to have a retry. Okay. And that's going to be my first step. Now, the next step was to stop some tax software. Now, for this is going to be very unique to our environment. So I need to run a script to stop that. So simple as this, we're going to do stop tax software. And I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom here where I can start to run my scripts. I can run it from the ls command, SSH, I can run a JavaScript, whatever I'd like. Now, I don't have that script readily available here, so I'm just going to write the word script as my script here. And then I'm going to select what systems I want that to run on. Right. So here I'm just going to select this particular server here. And if this fails, I'll just have it retry. Right. And then lastly is to stop ECC non-production. Stop ECC, come in here and select my SAP system, database, and servers. I'm sorry, not start, stop here. There we go. And select the 1 or again, 100,000 systems, whatever you would like, right? So now I've got my automation ready to go. Avantra is going to go one step by one step, right? So if this fails, it's not going to move on to the next step until it completes, or I email someone, or so Avantra can recognize and say, hey, I'm going to email someone if this has failed. All these different stop gaps in place to make sure that the automation doesn't go off on its own and go rogue. In this case, I'm going to edit a schedule. I want this to happen every Friday. So I'm going to come in here and my weekly, run it Friday, in this case at 4 o'clock p.m. This is going to run. Now, the other example is having Avantra run an automation based on a trigger or based on monitoring. So I'm going to delete my steps here that I have here so far. And what I'm going to do is quick build out a starting of an Azure server. Now, again, this is going to be a pre-built server. And so essentially using the API to call the server up. And here's going to be start cloud server. And in here, I'm just going to select, that particular server. And then the next step is to start up that additional SAP instance or additional SAP application server. So I'm going to start SAP app server, come in here and select that additional instance. Okay, and I'll select whatever that instance is that we're going to utilize here. All right, so now I have the automation ready to go, but I need to go tell what check it's going to base that on, right? Because I don't want it to be on a schedule now. I want it to be trigger based. So I'm going to go into my monitoring here. So essentially, we're going to go into our systems and look at some SAP monitoring. I'm going to go into one particular system here, and then go into my checks. Right. So if you're not familiar with Avantra monitoring, it's something definitely take a look into. But I quickly essentially just went into one particular SAP system, and we're looking at what is called our real-time monitoring. So what is happening in the environment right now? I'm going to scroll down here and I can look at my work processes. Again, these are those little work engines that happen within SAP that if you have a monitoring solution just for OS monitoring, it's not going to be able to see, right? So Microsoft Azure's monitoring in place will not be able to see this. We'll click in here. And if these DIA or dialogue work processes fill up, we have a big problem. As you can see here, things are starting to fill up. So Avantra can recognize this and say, all right, I'm going to go out and start out that additional application server. Or in the example we gave earlier, go tell ServiceNow to get that workflow in place, right? But in this case, it's going to essentially trigger this automation now to go up and start up that additional server, start up that additional application server, and away we go. So hope you enjoyed this short little explainer video on running Avantra with Microsoft Azure. If you are currently in Azure, if you're considering going to Azure or you're running in a hybrid environment, really hope you found some value in this. If you'd like to speak more to us, please reach out to us or visit our website at www.avantra.com. Thank you very much.